obviously Texas landed a recruit, and let's start out with that. Where will Texas finish in recruiting? I think that's what everyone wants to know or guess. Around this time last year, everyone was freaking out. What's happening? Da 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 da. I think we were ranked somewhere in the 35 range, 30 to 35 range. Or it's pretty similar this year, 37th. I said on here up until like July, hey, trust the staff. The staff has not steered us wrong. They've done a really good job. But let's talk about the past cycles. So in 2022, they finished fifth overall with 28 commits. At this time, they only had 5 commits. 23, third overall class, 25 commits in that class. At this time, they only had 5. Again, 24, fifth overall class, 22 commits, third or 3 at this time, so even less. 25 last year, first overall, 25 commits, 4 at this time. Right now, we stand 37 in the country, and we have 6 commitments. So, Gerald, where do you think we land, and how do you think the class is coming together so far?
Yeah, I mean, I guess those are kind of intertwined, right? I feel like the class is where it needs to be right now. We've gotten so used to, I think, the old way of recruiting and the old way that recruiting existed, where classes were relatively shored up earlier in the process, but with NIL, with kind of the new era of college football, we kind of have to get used to these classes stretching out. And I always think back to it was the middle of the season, Steve Sarkisian's first year, and folks were freaking out about offensive line recruiting. And somebody asked him about it in a press conference, right? And he said the guys that were recruiting at the offensive line are not committing now. They're committing closer to signing day. And lo and behold, Texas had one of the best, if not the best, offensive line classes in school history, right? Calvin Banks, DJ Campbell, Cam Williams, all of those guys. And I think that's just the new reality of recruiting at Texas. And being, let's just like Texas fans, I'm a Texas fan. I'm the same way. We are a reactionary bunch. We are a Chicken Little bunch from time and time again, where the sky is falling and things are happening. But ultimately, I think this class is in a good spot, right? They already have the quarterback locked up. They look like they have probably 2 running backs that are going to end up in the class. Both of them are like top, 100, top 50 even guys, right? In good position with the right skill players at wide receiver. There's elite tight ends that are looking to jump on the boat, right? It's probably going to be a big offensive line class again. And again, they're positioned well with some of the top guys in the class. And the same thing goes on defense, right? They're positioned really well for a lot of the great players. Texas just landed an impact guy at defensive back at cornerback this weekend. So like it's trending in the right direction. And I think even in spite of this being what may be a class that's a little on the smaller end, very offense heavy, probably on the smaller end, I still think top 5 is probably a fair expectation for this group.
Yeah, I mean, that's the worst Steve Sarkisian and the staff has done is the 5th best recruiting class. So I agree. I think that's kind of the floor they've laid, where I don't think we're going to be much worse than that. And yeah, this time last year, you can go back to a video from about a year ago I made where people were freaking out. And I said, hey, calm down. This staff has not really gotten anything wrong yet. So I'm going to give them my full trust. And what do you know? In like 3 months, we end up inside the top 10. And I said at the time, I think 5th to 7th is where we're going to finish, somewhere in between there. We ended up with number 1. And like you said, it goes later and later in the cycle. For example, guys, Justice Terry was like the last day. He actually was technically after signing day. He had already signed with Texas, but he didn't announce till afterwards. And everyone up until he put on that Texas Longhorn hat thought Georgia. 100%. If you read everywhere, there were stories already written that we're going to get posted of, oh, he's going to Georgia. Well, guess what? He went to Texas. That is this new era of recruiting. So until that ink is dry, not even signed, until it's dry, and even then you still got to recruit guys when they're on campus. That is when you can, freak out if we're bad or celebrate if we're good. And most likely it's hard for me if we go like 10-2 this year and we end up as a top 4 team again. I think you're going to get another top 5 class. It would take like a terrible season from Texas, a terrible developmental draft as well. I don't see that happening. So I completely agree. I think this is going to end up being a top 5 class, and I'm excited to see who we get. And I think you brought up a very good point about the quarterback position. There's like 3 or 4 positions I think you'd like to wrap up early. Quarterback is one of them. I'd like to see one offensive lineman in the class already, which we do have Max Wright. We both are very high on him. And then I would like to see a defensive lineman in there. We don't have that currently. So that would be my only concern, if you put it that way. I don't even say that, but we got 2 out of the 3 major aspects of the team already solidified.
Yeah, and I think that if Texas wasn't in the conversation for any of the elite guys at those spots, I'd feel a little more concerned. But Texas is right; they're in the conversation for like the number one edge rusher in the country, and a bunch of 4-star defensive tackles, and again multiple 4-star defensive backs. Recruiting sources, people that are tapped in, are saying like this could be a really special defensive back class. So like, there's a lot still left to be decided about this group, and I don't have any sort of fear or trepidation based upon the history that this staff has put together, right? This is, again, we long gone are the days of Mac Brown having this thing cinched up by September, right? That's not a thing. It even ended when Mac Brown was on campus, right? And even like Tom Herman liked to have things cinched up early. So we really got used to having most of the guys in the boat early on, but we see what those recruiting results were for Texas. A lot of top heavy, a lot of flash, no substance, really under recruited in the trenches. And so Texas right now is in an enviable position where they can take it slow. They can do the big game hunting. They can really target the players that they feel like are going to be impact players, do a really good job evaluating on the trail, and ultimately still be in a position. We talk about it every week. Texas is in a really unique position because they're able to offer and match effectively any NIL offer that's on the table, right? If they want a guy and it comes down to money, Texas is going to win that 9 times out of 10, right? So Texas is in an enviable position where now they get to offer the other things, right? Hey, you're going to get paid regardless where you go. Georgia, Alabama, USC, Tennessee, Florida, wherever, right? You're going to get paid. But we now have 12 skins on the wall from the last NFL draft, right? We have back-to-back college football playoff semifinals, right? So those are the things now that are differentiators for Texas, and those types of players are not the ones that are going to rush into a decision.
No, 100%. And also what you brought up with the Mac Brown era, it's different with the NIL era because if you put out your best offer now, they give someone like 4 or 5 months to beat that offer. Whereas if you put it at the last second, then it kind of puts, pressure on the kid as well as you have the best offer on the table. You don't want to set that bar too high right now because anyone can come in and beat it in these next 4 to 5 months. So I think that's the way they go about it. And it's also the long game of creating that relationship as well. That isn't created overnight. You're not creating a fake relationship. You're actually creating a real relationship with that recruit and his family. So I think that's important to say as well. And then also, guys, like the number's cool and all, but you also Tom Herman put up really good, like, oh, they're this 5th overall class, but then there's, like you said, no substance behind that at all. This staff has done a really good job with substance. So in this class, guys, to me, and I think Gerald would agree with this too, we both agree this needs to be a heavy offensive line cycle because of the guys in state that you have available to you.
Yep.
And because we've kind of cycled out of that 2022 class. Like this is basically their last year at Texas. So you need a heavy offensive line class. I think you probably need a heavy linebacker class as well because Anthony Hill's going to be gone. And then you're also going to lose. I'm losing the name. You know his name. Tell him for me. Yeah, thank you. He's going to be gone after 1 more year, most likely too. I think he's off to the NFL after 3 years. So
yep.
That to me, I think linebacker and offensive line, those are the 2 key areas you always have to hit. And Diabell's already in the class. Like that was going to be my other one is you always have to have a good quarterback on deck. This guy, to me, is a stud. Like we're talking, I think Arch Manning's definitely a better recruit, but you could tell me Diabell ends up a better college player than Arch Manning, and I would not be shocked by that.
I mean, Diabell has everything you want out of a prep recruit. And again, this is the plan, right? We could dive in deeper on the quarterback planning from Steve Sarkisian, how it's kind of went off without a hitch. You get multiple years from Quinn Ewers, you get 2 years from Arch Manning probably, and then you slot right into 2 years of Diabell as a redshirt freshman, rinse and repeat, right? This is going to be, again, the way that they built this roster and this group, it has been masterful, right? They came in with a very clear plan. Steve Sarkisian was not shy about his plans to flip the roster, and they did it in a year, right? They did it in a year, and in a year when they went 5-7 and they landed elite players that allowed them to really change the trajectory of the program. So just to put like my fine point on it, like they've got nothing but trust from me because I've seen them do it over and over and over again.
No, I completely agree. And I made a video about Hayward Howard Jr. committing to Texas. So guys, please check that out. But Gerald, I want to get your opinions on him real quick.
Yeah, he's a dude. Like there's no 2 ways around it. Tall, long. He's almost like that new breed of defensive back that, especially Texas seems to be targeting, and everybody around the country, right? I think he's listed at 6'2" on his recruiting site, so he's probably closer to like 6'1", 6'1.5". They gave him that extra half inch, but big physical player, able to really play like lockdown coverage. Like he's very much in that Manny Muhammad mold. I'm not going to say that he has the immediate upside of Manny Muhammad. Don't expect him to come in and be a starter as a freshman, but he's got all the physical tools. He's got the attributes. He's a very fast player. He uses his body really well. And ultimately, I say this every time I talk about a defensive back, the Texas recruiting guy doesn't mind contact. He does not mind contact. And I love a DB that doesn't mind contact.
Yeah, I think it says they want to start to play more man-to-man as we go
Yep.
along, because you see these long, lanky guys that can get their hands up and then also run with wide receivers. But also it's good in zone too, because if you're long and lengthy like that, Richard Sherman was the best case of the NFL. Like he can cover ground with his limbs more than his foot speed, because everyone was concerned with his foot speed because he ran like a 4.6. Well, that doesn't matter as much if you're 6'3" and your arms are super long and you have good ball skills. So I think this guy brings both of those things. And this has been the PK mold for a while. Like if you go back to Washington, that is who we want: long, lengthy DBs that can make plays on the football. And we're finally getting to that point. So I'm super excited. We've brought up the wide receivers as well. Like that's kind of what we want on the outside of wide receivers too. Long, lengthy athletes that can go up and get the ball, like a Khalil Lockett, who they recruited. So I'm very excited for Hayward Howard Jr. if he stays in the class. I got to keep saying that because, we get excited about these guys, but there is a long way to go on that.
It is December's a long way away.
Yeah. And by the way, that's a good thing because I want to enjoy the summer. Again, guys, can you please hit that like button? Please subscribe down below. It really helps out.